Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're taking a look at the fourth video in our Learn to Play Chess series, and that is going to be focusing on the rook. The rook is the piece that looks like the castle. It's hanging out in the corner, and that's exactly how you can remember where to put it when you start the game. So what you want to do is you want to put that castle in the corner here. That rook belongs on A1, H1, H8, and A8 for black. Now, how do those rooks move? Well, the rook is one of our strongest pieces just behind the queen. The rook can cover a lot of ground, and one of the unique things about the rook is that no matter where it is on the board, it can actually go to the same number of squares. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Here we have our rook on the corner in A1. He can move vertically all the way up to the top, or horizontally all the way along the side. Horizontally would be along the first rank here, vertically along the A file. So if we count those squares, we would have 7 of them along the file he can move to, and another 7 he can move to out here along the rank. If we were to take a piece and move that rook out into the center of the board, he still ends up with the same amount of squares to go to. You'll notice now he can move up or down along the file. He can move left or right along the rank. But nonetheless, he still has 7 squares vertically and another 7 squares horizontally. So regardless of where the rook is on the board, he always has 14 squares that he can go to. Now, the rook is a very strong piece, especially as you get later in the game. What you see here right now is that this rook on the center, there's nothing in its way. He can move to all of these wonderful squares. However, a rook is not like a knight. He cannot move through squares. So if we look at this fella down here on H1, he's got a pawn in front of him, right? That means, unfortunately, that he's not allowed to go through that pawn. He can't go forward. So right now, the only squares he can go to are sideways like this. At the start of our game, our rooks are not necessarily restricted by being in the corner, but they are restricted because of all of the pieces that are around them. There's all these other pieces on the back, all these pieces and pawns in front of them here, which tends to be why we want to hold on to them. We want to save them for later on when more space opens up. The more space that's on the board, the more powerful our rooks will become. Well, you might be asking yourself, how does the rook capture? Just like our other pieces, the rook can move and capture exactly how it moves. It's not like a pawn, it's just like the knight or the bishop. It simply goes to the square where it can move and captures that way. So here these two rooks face off against each other. Since it's white's turn, white can play rook takes on d8. And now that it's black's turn, you'll notice these two rooks now point at each other, and black can play rook h takes on d8. One thing to note about that, if we look back here, the two black rooks on the 8th rank are connected. So two rooks being connected, they support each other very well. This is another thing to remember. If you can, you want to clear space between your two rooks because they work best when they are attached, when they're connected this way. That way, if one of them gets taken, the other can recapture. And also it creates a powerful battering ram to be able to attack your opponent's pieces. So those are our rooks. That's where they belong on the board. Hopefully you'll be able to put this to use, get them going in your early games. We'll look more in depth later on at how we can use our rooks in the end game to win. But for now, this should be good to get you going. Hope you get those castles in the corner, get them powerful, rolling out of the board, and hopefully you've had some fun with this as well.